champion of the world, one of the hardest hitters ever in that division, and his latest protege. Donny Lalonde joins us. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show coming up. Welcome to the program. Our guest today was born in Kitchener. He grew up in Kitchener, Vancouver, and Winnipeg. How's that for being Canadian? He turned pro in 1980. His professional record was 41 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw with 33 knockouts. He was a Canadian light heavyweight champion. He was a WBC World Light Heavyweight Champion. He challenged for the World Cruiserweight title. He is a member of the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, a member of the Indiana Sports Hall of Fame, the original Golden Boy, Donny Lalonde. Donny, good to have you here, my friend. Long time no see.
Thank you, Jim. So nice to see you. Yes, it's been way too long. You're looking great.
Yeah, this is great, man. Yeah, you look good too, man. Really good.
You look like you're in your 20s. You look like you're in your 20s finally. Before you used to look like you were a teenager.
I did, yeah. I always had that problem. It wasn't really a problem, but it's kind of good, actually. So, it's been a long time, Donny. You look fantastic, and I know you're joining us from Costa Rica, but I want to go back to the beginning of your career and tell us why and how you got into the sport of boxing.
Well, I mean, first of all, I left home at 15 years old, kind of looking for direction, And my older brother, got me into carpentry, and I started building houses by the time I was 17, I could look at a blueprint and frame a house, from it. So I learned how to build houses, but, it wasn't really my burning desire. It was boxing came into my life really through watching Wide World of Sports. I grew up in a very violent part of Vancouver. I was Catholic, and the Protestants didn't like Catholics. And so, I had to protect myself. So it kind of started with that back in Vancouver. My mom said, well, if you're going to have to fight your way to school, you better go to the boxing gym at the Astoria Boxing Club on Hastings in Vancouver. We lived in the housing project right across the street. So that led me to boxing, but just for a while. Then we moved up north, and I played hockey. There was no boxing up there. But then when I moved to Kitchener as a teenager, and I left home at 15, I hitchhiked to Kitchener, minus 30 degrees, leaving Winnipeg. Almost died in Beaujeu, I think it was. But in Kitchener, I got back involved with boxing, and really watching it on TV one day, I just went to my brother, look at this kid. I mean, look how confident he looks. Look how, much dignity he seems to be having within himself and his self-psyche. And my brother said, okay, but what are we going to do about that? I said, well, I don't know, let's try it, So we went for a run, put down our cigarette or probably our joint or our beer, went for a run. And after that run, just said, I'm going to be a world champion. This is the greatest thing. I'm really excited about boxing. And Hook McComb was the trainer at the time, the Kitchener police boxing gym. I went in. He knew my grandmother from years past, so I guess he kind of took to me a bit and helped inspire me. And then Arnie Bain took over his gym and took over Lennox Lewis's career. And I left there and went back to Winnipeg. But basically, looking for direction in life is what helped me find boxing, and boxing gave me that guidance throughout my life.
It certainly did, man. It's what a story, and ending up in Kitchener, what of all places, Arnie Beam and Lennox Lewis, the Johnson brothers, Vanderpools. Yeah. I mean, there's such a great, tremendous boxing tradition in Kitchener. So I always think there's sort of like, guidance behind the guidance, that steers you in certain directions, that steers us in certain directions. So I know that you've always been a big proponent for, you had the no excuse for child abuse back when you were a kid. And I know that child abuse, why is that particular charity so close to your heart?
Well, when I was a child, I grew up in a fairly violent environment, like alcohol and fighting. My stepfather, my father, he was I hate to say it, but the truth is he was like a pedophile. I mean, he abused children. And, he had a music school, so he would lure them into the music school, and then he would abuse them. So that was a very disturbing part of my past, which I didn't know about till later, but it kind of reflected to me who he was to me, though I fortunately didn't experience that with him or anybody. But I definitely had very negative energy, negative environment around me as a child. And I didn't want that, of course. I wanted to have a peaceful, loving, supportive environment around me. And then my stepfather was very violent. He was very violent. I mean, he almost killed my mom on a number of occasions. I had to step in to interject and stop him, even as like a 12, 13, 14-year-old. And he was, again, very violent to me. So the Child Abuse Awareness Campaign came about from Lisa Steinberg, a young girl that lived just a couple blocks from me in New York City, right before I was about to fight for a world title. And it just kind of, by speaking about that after winning a world title, it kind of catapulted my name connection with that. And I thought, what a great blessing and opportunity to be able to help children through my boxing career. So that kind of was the marriage and how it went from there.
Well, that's, I am sure that having experienced the physical abuse and having known about your father, I mean, it's got to be cathartic being able to help others, who experience that type of thing, because it is rampant in society, and you do what you can to help it, stop that, and that help people who've suffered through it, because there's a long road ahead. So now you're getting back to your boxing career. You're very, very short amateur career by all accounts. I think 15 fights, something along those lines, and then you decided to turn pro. What made you think that this is something I can do for a living? What was it about you that made you think that you could do this?
Well, first of all, I was, like I said, bullied a lot in school. So I would have to fight not even in school years. I'm talking about grade 1 and grade 2. Trying to get to school, I'd have to fight like a lineup of Protestants because I'm trying to get to the Catholic school. And so fighting was part of my life from a very young age. And I'm not a violent person. I'm not of that mindset at all. But life brought it to me. And so I had to do what I could with it. And I guess my mother was a big inspiration for me, and she was just a realist. I mean, she lived a very tough life with, like I said, violence in her home. Even growing up, and I'm not saying my grandfather was a violent man like my father was, but there was definite. Old world kind of mentality growing up for them. They, German, strict, you just listen. Kids are heard and not seen, spoken. They don't speak, kind of thing. So we just grew up kind of like in the old way. And obviously, for obvious reasons, there's scars that come along with that. Sorry, Joe, I kind of missed the point of the question. I'm going to get back to. What was your...
Well, the point was is there was something in you that made you decide that not only could you be a pro, but you could be like a champion. Right.
Okay. So I went to a boxing gym for that reason, and there was this tough guy in the neighborhood. I only can remember his Dean. I can never remember his last name, but we were talking like 55 years ago, 54 years ago. But he was a bully in school. And as it turns out, in the boxing gym, he was also in the boxing gym. And so the very first time I ever sparred, and again, remember, I'm like a grade 2, kind of like Catholic little nice boy, not like a fighting, angry type. And he would pick on me, and he'd pick on me. And finally, here we are at a boxing gym, and the coach says, okay, you two guys box each other for my very first spar ever. And I just found it so ironic how, because in the street, more guys can jump in, they can use sticks or clubs or knives or whatever. Back in those days, they did that a lot. So for me to only have to think about 2 hands in front of me seemed so simple. It was almost comical. Like I'm standing in front of this guy and he goes to throw one. Obviously, I move out of the way and hit him for trying to hit me kind of thing. And I just found boxing so, it just came to me so naturally. And so I literally, from the very first time I stepped in a boxing ring to spar, I kind of felt like I can do this. I understand this game. My boxing IQ was high. And that's the same I'm going to say for Malik. His boxing IQ is so high. He was such a brilliant student. So that's why I really enjoyed the connection with him, because we related on a level that's kind of beyond fundamentals. There's a lot more to boxing than the fundamentals. And I was not great at the fundamentals, but I understood the game. And that's one thing I'm excited about Malik for. He's of similar mind.
So you decided to turn pro, which is obviously a pretty good decision. You racked up a record of 19-1 along the way. The only loss you had was to Wilbur Johnson, the decision. You immediately revenged for the second round knockout. And we got some action from 1986. You're facing a highly regarded guy named Benito Fernandez in Winnipeg, okay? And what do you remember about this fight? It was a 9th round knockout.
Well, he went down like 7 times. And I swear every time he went down, it hurt my hand more than it hurt him, because my hand was in really bad shape at this point in my career. In fact, at this point, I had 6 injuries, that each independent injury, the specialist in New York that my manager had me see, contractually I was obligated to see who he said. He put me with 6 specialists on 6 separate injuries, and all of them said, this is a career-ending injury. Donny cannot box anymore effectively. You're wasting your money, Dave. And at this, so what I remember most about this fight, it was my last fight with Teddy Atlas. And mainly because I found with Teddy, psychologically, I was going backwards. I was almost like subconsciously becoming injured to try and get out of going to the gym. Not that I don't love boxing and didn't love it like immensely. I still today miss the gym every day. But Teddy was wearing me out psychologically, and it was just becoming like something that I started questioning. Can I even? Is it even worth me committing all this time in my life to this? Because actually back then I was already, I owned 5 houses and I was already doing quite well with real estate in Winnipeg. And I started thinking, geez, with all these injuries and Teddy Atlas is my trainer, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I really started second guessing myself. So that fight was a big turning point for me.
So how do you overcome those injuries? I got a few questions here. I'm going to kind of wrap up into one big one here, but how do you overcome those injuries? I know you hooked up with Dave Wolf, which was worked out very well for you, and after Teddy Atlas, Tommy Gallagher. But I want to get back to Teddy, because there's a story about you and Teddy put in his book about something about a gun and going to kill you. Tell us about that. What happened?
Well, again, that's Teddy's story, and so I don't know that side of it. I only know my experience with it, and that is, I think it was Teddy trying to sell a book. I really don't. Yeah. I mean, first of all, I know the guy he was referring to, he went to do it with. I know mindset, so neither one of those two things surprised me that he actually did that. I'm not saying he didn't do that, but I didn't experience it because I wasn't there. And I, in fact, didn't live in that house for a year at that point. So Teddy, his story is he deserved the 10% of the Leonard fight, even though it happened literally, is it 2 years after? Yeah, 2 years after him and I stopped working together. And he forgets that Tommy Gallagher and, as relevantly, Bobby Cassidy, Tommy's training partner, those 2 guys are really what got me from this broken down, beat up fighter that you saw stop Fernandez in that clip. I'm talking about internally, psychologically, to a very overconfident, confident, like destruction machine. I mean, I was literally in those days afraid to hit people because I was afraid I'd hurt them. That's how good Bobby and Tommy had me psychologically. Versus Teddy, when I was with him, I was just literally like a shell of myself, as you would say.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, I saw you. I went down to Gleason's gym and watched you work with Tommy and Bobby, it was not that Teddy Atlas didn't make Donny Lalonde. There's no way in the world that happened. As you mentioned, you might have taken a step backwards in that time with Teddy. Not to
Well,
say that Teddy's not a great trainer or anything else, but it did work for you. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, just to put it in perspective, I was with Teddy for 11 months of a 27-year career, And Peter Piper from Winnipeg and Al Sparks from Winnipeg, they taught me much more about boxing than Teddy Atlas ever did. Teddy has this overbearing, very militaristic mentality of he's going to beat you into or shame you into doing something he wants you to do. And Teddy just didn't understand. Teddy, that's not me. You got to talk to me like a human being. You got to tell me intellectually, technically, why something works, why it doesn't work, why I should do it, why I shouldn't do it. And so Teddy just worked for other people. Some people needed the mentality that Teddy gives, but it wasn't me. So people like Pete Piper, Al Sparks, Hook McComb, Arnie Bain, Champ Chaney, Marvin Johnson's trainer, who I went to start training with when I was 22. These guys were guys that developed me into being a fighter. Bobby Cassidy, Tommy Gallagher. These are the guys who deserve credit and probably payment for that fight. But that's not how boxing works. And I certainly don't control that. And neither does Teddy Atlas. So it just went how it went. And he didn't get the money because he wasn't there at the time, and nor was he really worthy of it. So that's it, Teddy. You're not the center of the universe in this time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Teddy didn't get his money, and you didn't get shot, and everybody lives happily ever after. So you after a loss to Willie Edwards, you rung up 9 straight wins, including the Mustafa Hamsho fight at Madison Square Garden that fell for him. Lopsided decision for the WBC Continental Americans title. Probably, that was your biggest title at the time, and you were moving along pretty well at that point.
Yeah, well, again, first of all, I got to say, David Wolf was a brilliant manager. And as frustrated as I was sometimes with his approach, because he was very methodical and I was very like, let's go get him, it was his brilliance that really helped me. First of all, he put me with Bobby Goodman at Madison Square Garden, which was a brilliant move. It was a time when there was a changing of the guard in boxing, and you had Mustafa Hamsho, as you mentioned his name, but just before that, Mustafa Hamsho was a huge name in New York City boxing because he had like 43 wins, 1 loss, which was his very first fight, which he avenged. And then after that was Marvin Hagler, was his only other loss. And in a very historically relevant and memorable fight. And so Hamsho was a huge name. So David was brilliant to put me with him. And that fight is really what catapulted my career to, it gave me a number 1 position in the world and a shot at the vacant title that was available because Michael Spinks moved up to beat Larry Holmes. So the timing, obviously, there's, like you mentioned, there's a force behind all things that seem to help things move along. And for some reason, I was meant to box for the World Light Heavyweight Championship, but not against Michael Spinks, thank God.
The Spinks jinx. You talk about Mustafa Hamsho, and I remember watching him fight on Wide World of Sports. He was a heck of a fighter, and that was a big win for you. Surprised quite a lot of people, I think, and it also, as you mentioned, put you in line for a shot at the title, Eddie Davis. And so this is for the WBC World Championship in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. You stung Davis with a beautiful right hand late in the first round, and Davis went down right there. That was your big punch, the golden hammer, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, I want to give credit to Pete Piper. He's really the one in Winnipeg who took the time, impeccable patience, and refinement of skill to be able to get me to throw that right hand how I did, which was in such a way, as you could see, that the opponent didn't even see it coming. And why I had to do that was my right hand was very badly destroyed in my first loss against Vampire Johnson. I broke it in the first round and kind of destroyed it, continuing to fight. And so I had to be very careful how I landed my right hand. If you watch here, I get him right on the side of the face, very soft part of the chin, where it's not going to hurt my hand if I hit him. And I had to move my feet around to get to that side. Like Pete really worked with me to help me refine how to not just throw a devastating punch, but to then be able to land it. And again, if you see here, I'm hitting him from the side, and that's all through finesse. And I had to do it that way because if I destroyed my right hand, my left shoulder was already very vulnerable from a hockey injury, from a couple surgeries and a pin I had. So between my, vulnerable left shoulder and very vulnerable right hand, I had to be very careful. And Davis, unfortunately for him, became the victim of that. Ironically, just a quick little funny story, Joe. Recently, I spent time with Michael Spinks when I was inducted last year into the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. And I got to sit with Michael, and he started telling me about the Davis brothers, because Johnny Davis beat Leon Spinks. Johnny Davis, Eddie's brother, beat Leon Spinks in the Olympics, in the amateurs. Not in the Olympics, in the amateurs. And Michael beat Eddie Davis, though he fought both of them. He beat Eddie Davis in his last title defense before moving up to heavyweight. So the Davis brothers were really relevant in Michael's life, and all he could do is compliment them and speak about, how tough they were, but most importantly, how hard they punched. So I assume you never saw him when I won the world title against Eddie Davis. He's like, no, I didn't. I said, well, let's watch it. And I pulled out my computer and we watched it. It was such an honor just seeing his eyes open when he saw me knock out Eddie Davis. Because he said, I hit him with everything. And that guy didn't go anywhere. He hit so hard, and blah, 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 So it was just such an honor, such a wonderful experience to share that moment with Michael Spinks, who, to me was like the ultimate, like the god of light heavyweights ever,
Yeah.
Fun times.
He was, yeah. The Spinks brothers both brought home gold medals from the Olympics. Yeah. So you saw Eddie, he was somehow able to weather the storm for that first round, but you stopped him in the second round, and you could see the joy in your face. And then there's Dave Wolf in the ring, and Bobby, and Tommy, and just incredible joy. He was just on top of the world at that point, weren't you?
Well, when I was going down the stairs after the fight, Tommy Gallagher put his hands right to my ear, and because it was so loud in there, and he goes, Donny Lalonde, you're the WBC light heavyweight champion of the world, and nobody will ever be able to take that away from you. And it was such a poignant point and such a poignant thing to say, and right in the middle of all of that, for me to kind of like have it in perspective. And yeah, it was an incredible success. You can imagine when just less than a year earlier, I was very seriously looking at retirement. So from the injuries. So, it wasn't, it was an amazing thing. And Dave Wolf, it was hilarious. I had the worst victory dance in history.
Let's roll that
Dave
again.
Wolf, poor David's knees,
Yeah. Go ahead, continue, Donnie. Let's talk about that.
I'm just saying, David's knees, he could barely even hold me up,
Yeah.
But, I was on a dance floor a while back here in Costa Rica, and some guy comes up behind me and hits me from behind. He goes, Donny Lalonde. But yeah, he goes, you're the light heavyweight boxing champion of the world. How the hell did you become a world boxing champion and you have no rhythm whatsoever? No. So I said, well, I actually, I fought off of the other guy's rhythm, really, is what happened.
Yeah.
I would, if you watch when the guys are moving, I'm sort of going in between that. Was his name Roddy McDonald and Kitchener was a perfect example of that. I found his rhythm, and then I would find a way to get in the middle of what he was doing and sort of interrupt his rhythm, which was really one of the psychological ways and physical ways I actually landed my punches. But it was funny, yeah. Well, okay, it wasn't the most romantic or best victory dance, but we had a lot to celebrate at that moment.
Okay, Donny, let's talk about your first title defense, and you're back in Port of Spain, Trinidad, facing the legend Leslie Tiger Stewart. And you went into this fight as the underdog, despite the fact you were holding the title, but you were clearly the better fighter, and this would be a 5th round stoppage. Tell us about this fight with Tiger Stewart being an underdog despite being the champ.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I felt I was an underdog going into the fight because he had accomplished so much with such great fighters, against such great fighters. And Leslie Stewart, at the time was being hailed as someone, a real up-and-comer. In fact, they were talking about him maybe moving to heavyweight to fight Tyson. And his fundamental skill level far exceeded mine. And that was always one of these things in my mind that, trainers would always say, you've got to you got to really refine your fundamentals or you're not going to make it in boxing. And so that really played on my mind. Of course, it was in his home country. And so he had a tremendous amount of support. Like when I would run, I was running around this park the month leading up to the fight. We went a month early to get acclimated after a training camp for a month in Dominican Republic, again, to get acclimated to the heat, because the fight was on the equator in the hottest part of the year. I've come to learn because I now live in Costa Rica, not far from there. And it's the most humid time of year, which makes it the most challenging physically. So Dave Wolf, again, my manager, did a brilliant job in that he went to the arena every day at the time of the fight just to take a look at what the weather pattern might be like. Like, for example, if it's windy, which way might it be windy? Because that might, if it's raining, it could blow wind that direction, and I shouldn't be sitting with or fighting with that rain coming into my eyes because it was an outdoor fight. Where is the sun going to be? Stuff like that. So I literally, we built the fight plan, quite a bit around the heat and the sun. As it turns out, if you take a look at the fight when you're watching it here, as you're showing a bit, you can see the line is right in the middle of the ring, the shade line.
Right.
So he had me sitting on the side with the shade, not with my back to the sun.
Wow.
Yeah. And things like that. And I'll tell you, when the fight was stopped, when you see the referee do this, the fight's over. And I remember looking up and doing that and thinking, okay, the fight's over. That's great. I wonder who won. Because I was so delirious.
Whoa.
I was so tired after only 5 rounds from the heat. Gil Clancy or whoever, Tim Ryan, whoever was at ringside there calling the fight, pulled up the thermostat at one point, and he said, it's 100 degrees here, but that really doesn't show you how hot it is, because it's just, it's like right now, it's becoming May, here, and where I live, the ground, it hasn't rained here other than once since November. And it's already green almost to the top of the mountains because the humidity gets so hot, so dense, that it literally waters plants before it rains. That's how dense the humidity gets down near the equator here in the jungle. And that's where we fought, where Leslie's from. So, knowing what I was going up against, to me, it was just ultimately fun, because for me, it was always overcoming goals that the world or society or geopolitics or geothermal, just and always going against the grain. I always went against what was the norm or whatever, and going into that was like the ultimate for me. If I can beat this guy, I can do anything type of thing. And unfortunately, I believe that too much going into the Leonard fight, probably the next fight. But this fight itself, Leslie Stewart fought a very smart fight. I was hurt. I think it was the third round, really badly. I couldn't see anything. I could barely think. I was like really hurt. Luckily, I just fainted, not being hurt, and he didn't catch on how hurt I was. But Leslie Stewart was an extremely talented fighter. He had phenomenal fundamentals and incredible heart. You can't beat Marvin Johnson like he did. You can't beat Marvin Johnson anywhere, let alone in Indiana, then again in Trinidad, without having a heart the size of the world. Marvin Johnson was just an unbelievable human being. What he go through, get through, and put you through was an amazing thing. So Leslie Stewart beating Marvin, you got to remember, I moved to Indiana to box with Marvin because I read in boxing magazines that he was the toughest guy in the boxing gym to spar against, because he literally had a mentality of he had to try and knock you out or he was doing you no favors. He thought it was his job to knock you out or try, and if you can stop him, that's good on you for learning. So he just had a very tough mentality, like very, very, and I was able to move to Indiana, spend a lot of time there, and learn my trade in spite of not having had an amateur background. Marvin was a bronze medalist in the Olympics. He had a tremendous amateur background. He had a tremendous professional. At that point, I think he was a 1 or 2-time world champion. 2-time, I think it was at the time. And so anyway, the Leslie Stewart fight was, if the Davis fight wasn't the pinnacle, the Leslie Stewart fight was, I would have to say, because beating a fellow as talented as Leslie Stewart under those conditions, for me personally, was the biggest accomplishment in the boxing.
Well, when you look at what you accomplished in those two fights, you think about this. Here's a guy who had to be basically pieced together, 6 like shoulder injuries, hand injuries. You're like the $6 million man being pieced together without all the high-tech equipment. But and here you are fighting and you talked about how you were told that you didn't have the fundamentals, the skills to beat these guys. But there's something else that you had, obviously, in addition to that incredible right hand, probably the best right hand, maybe the best right hand in the history of the division. And that jab was despite the fact of the shoulder problem, you were able to stick that jab in people's faces. And you did that in your next fight, the super fight. Let's talk about that one. Sugar Ray Leonard, November 7th, 1988, Caesar's Palace. I was there. One of the biggest money fights ever, certainly for non-heavyweights. And tell us about this moment.
As you can imagine, it was surreal. First of all, Sugar Ray Leonard at light heavyweight just didn't make sense. Well, we did at super middleweight, but I'm a light heavyweight, so I never thought of fighting a Sugar Ray Leonard. I thought of fighting Hagler. I thought of fighting Spinks, Michael Spinks. I walked 5 miles home crying, swearing that I was going to win back the heavyweight title from Muhammad Ali against Leon Spinks. And then here I am with Sugar Ray Leonard, who in 1976, so like 12 years earlier, won a gold medal for the Olympics for America at welterweight. Like I just never, so for me, really, I fundamentally or mathematically, I didn't see a way he could win the fight. Because as you mentioned, I'm a puncher. That was my strongest attribute. And I just thought, what, am I never going to hit this guy? Obviously, I'm going to hit this guy. As soon as I hit him, it's going to be over. Because I just thought it's impossible for him to finesse his way the whole time and not allow me to connect once. So I really went into the fight, you could say, overconfident. I was certainly over-prepared. I wasn't under-prepared. Tommy Gallagher did a great job in my training camp. I had very good sparring partners. So I prepared well for it. I probably overdid it because I went into the fight lighter than I needed to, even though the weight category was 168, and my normal is 175. I went into it 163, so I overdid it. I went in underweight, under prepared for a resilience type fight, because I honestly didn't think it was a resilience fight. I thought, I'm going to box him, and then eventually he's going to walk into a punch. The problem became when he did walk into that punch in the 4th round, in my mind, I'd switched. And as I was walking to the corner, just like in the Willie Edwards fight years before, which you were probably at, Joe, I remember thinking as I went to the neutral corner, this fight's over as soon as I hit him cleanly. Because I felt I hit Ray a little bit high on the cheekbone, and had I hit him a little lower, the fight would have been over. So I just felt, okay, that'll happen. And when I stopped fighting my fight, which is the fight that led to me landing that right now, and started waiting for myself to land the next punch, that's when Ray, pulled out his arsenal of experience, internal intestinal fortitude, incredible mean, just focus at ending a fight, like he did with Tommy Hearns and so many other great finishes he did. Ray was a great finisher.
He was a finisher. Yeah.
As soon as he saw me take my foot off the pedal, he switched gears immediately. And as you could see, he started outboxing me, and he started hitting me with some good shots. And people say he was only a welterweight. He was only a welterweight, but at the time, I mean, by this point of the fight, 5 rounds into it, I was probably like at best a middleweight. Like 156 to 154 to 160 was a
right.
And I was the best at that weight class. I mean, I was really light, and at this point in the fight, and my strength, the power started to become less, and Ray's impact of his punches became more as I became weaker. So Ray just, he fought a brilliant fight. He picked up through his 8th sense exactly when was the right time. He turned it on, and then fortunately, around the middle of the 8th round, I realized, okay, I've got to turn this back around. I've got to start fighting again. The way I fought to get here, the old fight plan, and I started doing that again. And as you saw in the fight, I mean, from about 3/4 of the way through the 8th round to almost till the fight ended, I had Ray. I was hitting him from pillar to post. I mean, technically, I was beating Ray Leonard. I was the better fighter that night. But
and the scorecard showed that. The scorecard showed that you were, that was a very close fight, but some had you hit.
Yeah, and
until he turned it around.
Yeah, and then I caught him. The downfall was when I caught him with a left hook right in the middle of the ring. But everybody said I didn't have a left hook. I caught him with a beautiful left hook right in the middle of the ring, hurt him, and was all over him. And I literally was thinking to myself, and I actually said, but I have a mouthpiece on, what do you want me to do, kill this old man? I thought, hitting him like from pillar to post, why aren't they stopping this fight? What do they want me to do to this guy? Because in those days, 32 years old was old. And I'm thinking at 28, I mean, he's an old man. I don't want to hurt this guy. It's a boxing match. And foolishly, and I just kind of took, again, my foot off the pedal and stopped sort of like being aggressive. And Ray felt that and right away turned around, hit me with a left hook. I went down, I got up, I was hurt. I looked at him, I just kind of like shrugged and smiled. And I went, oh my God, he's got me. Like, I mean, I have nothing left. And so he just, whether it was mental or physical, Ray beat me that day. And he beat me because he was a more experienced, better fighter. But not necessarily a better fighter, because I fought technically very well in that fight, and I was very proud of how I fought those rounds. It wasn't just because of power. It was, I knew how to box. I knew how to box on the level of a Sugar Ray Leonard. So I was proud of the fight, but I mean, completely disappointed, devastatingly disappointed in my own performance or lack thereof. And, what can you say? You just got to pick yourself up and keep going from there. But the fight actually ended, Joe. If you look at the final 2 punches, it was a left-right combination to my larynx. My larynx was crushed in that last two punches. And that's why I went down as hard as I did. And it really affected the rest of my career because it made no logical sense for me to get back in the ring truly after that fight. But being a fighter in spirit and heart, I didn't stop there, which I don't know. In retrospect, would it have been a better idea or not? I don't know. I loved the last 14 years of my career. I really enjoyed the boxing. But the Ray Leonard fight could have been the end of it. Could have been the start of another phase of it. Had I beat him, we had Tommy Hearns on the sidelines waiting. It would have been an amazing fight. There was lots more there to be done. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. Ray Leonard was a great champion, is a great champion, and I was very happy to box him and very proud to have been in the ring with him and shared the same stage with him.
Not bad for a kid who walked into the gym in Kitchener, who put on a cigarette butt, walked into the gym in Kitchener when he was with the grade 9 education, and fighting the biggest money fight of that fight that everybody's talking about. And I'm telling you, Caesar's Palace was buzzing. It's funny that you were on the show today because I just happened to be in Las Vegas, and yesterday, my wife Penny Claire and I in front of Caesar's Palace, we had to take this shot because Donny will get a kick out of this one, and what a moment that was. What great that was. Great time, all the money. Did you hang on to some of that money, Donny?
Well, I mean, for about 10 years I did. Unfortunately, I did a very stupid thing in that, and before I made the money, I said to my manager, I would never do this. And that was, I took on the money management of that money myself. Because, at the time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had just retired from basketball, and I mean, all-time legend, and he thought he had $60 million, but he found out that his money manager had absconded with quite a bit of it, and he had to go back to teaching schools, the story I read. So he was teaching gym, like $30,000 a year or something, teaching basketball. And I thought, if that could happen to him, it can happen to anybody. I mean, I should take this money myself and manage it in real estate. I'd already done well in real estate. Stupidly, and I have no idea why, I got into land instead of like retail, houses or commercial. With housing commercial, you have cash flow. And land, of course, you don't. And, you mentioned I had a grade 9 education. That doesn't give you a whole lot of math background. I had no business managing my own money. My money manager at the time, who ended up being a very, very good human being, and I really wish I would have left my money with him, he told me, he goes, Donny, my education is managing money. Your education is boxing. Why do you think you're going to do a better job than I am when you know how much work it takes to become good at what you did as a boxer? And I said, my only problem is if something ever happened and this money was lost by someone other than me, I honestly don't know what I would do. If I lose it, I know I have to live with myself, and that's a different thing. And I would rather, it fall on me. And unfortunately, that's what happened, and not once, but a couple times in my life where I made good money and lost it because, again, I'm not a money manager and I don't know how to do that. And please, other fighters and athletes, hear this. We are not money managers. You might be an amazingly smart human being in many ways. Money management is not the one. So we need help. And still today, I need help because I don't know what to do. I just do the best I can with, what I think. But I told a friend of mine the other day who was a very, very successful person. Him and I were partners in these real estate things that people say money was absconded from, which never was. I promise anybody in the world that I could prove that, but I want to take 2 minutes to find out. But I said to him, I still need help. And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, when you come into money, when I do, the money disappears. When you do, or people with experience, it grows. And there's a big difference between money disappearing and money growing over a 30-year period of time, So money management is something that, unfortunately, the most successful people I'm talking about like from nothing to getting something, athletes, musicians, artists, entertainers, we're not money managers. And so unfortunately, if quite often the story is like mine. No. So the long answer to your question is no, I did not keep the Leonard money, unfortunately. And it lasted exactly as long as my manager told me it would. He says, I give you 10 years. And he goes, if you want a reference, use Donald Trump. He makes billions every 10-year cycle of real estate, but he loses at every 10-year cycle because he's very good at real estate, but not great at money management.
Well, you now are managing, when you make that transition here, a young prospect and imparting your knowledge to him. And we're going to bring him in now. He's from Tripoli, Libya. He now lives in Pieta, Malta. He is 21-0 with 16 knockouts. He just became the WBC Mediterranean light heavyweight champion, Malik Zinad. Malik, welcome to the show, and it's great to have you here with your manager, trainer, confidant, Donny Lalonde. Good to see you, my friend.
Hello, hi, thank you for having me here, and hopefully going to be a great interview. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you hanging in there while we went through the history of Donny. And I hope you'll be taught you some stuff that you didn't know before. You learned some stuff from that could be helpful and maybe in your career. Tell us about your career so far. How'd you end up with Donny?
Donny, I met him in Malta. I met him in Malta like 8 years ago. So he came to Malta and I saw him there, and we know who he is, and I like to work with him, to be honest. And then we start work together, and look where I am now.
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, 21-0 on the verge of doing something great. Donny, who does Malik remind you of, if anybody, in the history of boxing, in your history?
I liken him to a Tommy Hearns, because Malik has that kind of power and he has that kind of reach and finesse. So the one thing that Malik doesn't have, like me, is the amateur background. So it took a little bit longer, and we're still not exactly where we want to be, but he has that kind of capacity to annihilate legends. Malik has the kind of, he's number 15 in the world now, by the way, WBC, WBA, 15, 16, like that, each one respectively. And but Malik has the capacity to destroy people like Tommy Hearns destroyed Pepino Cuevas, who was like unbeatable. Roberto Duran, who was Roberto Duran. We don't need to say any more. Tommy Hearns destroyed legends, and Malik has the same capacity to do that.
Wow, that's pretty high praise. Tommy Hearns, one of the all-time absolute greats. Malik, what got you into boxing? What made you decide that this is a sport where, I want to pursue this?
I wanna say the things about Donny and what he said now. Tommy here, he has a chance, he has the opportunity. Me, I don't get the chance. I'm working hard to be where I am now. Tommy has a chance. His country full of boxing. If I get the chance, I will be like Tommy for sure. So the opportunity for me is really hard. Like my country, the first professional boxer, is really hard for me. To keep going up all the time, struggling all the time, hard time all the time happening to me. But I'm keep going anyway. Keep going. And it would be something big in the future.
Well, we like your confidence, and that's what your manager had as well. Is lots of that. So, you do have some video of a recent fight you had here. I think this is where you captured the Mediterranean title. Tell us about this fight.
This fight was last month. I fought with this guy 20-0. He never lose. So it was a good fight, me and him. I was willing to knock him out, but there's something happening. So make the small ring and stuff make it like hard for me to knock this guy out. But I won him by point, and it was a really good fight for me. Donny was with me that time. So now looking forward for bigger fights, bigger opponents, and more like comfortable, like feeling.
Well, I noticed that Donny didn't show you the dance moves. He didn't show you the dance moves that you're supposed to have after you win the belt. He didn't teach you that.
No,
I learned too much from Donny. I learned too much things from Donny, from in boxing and in life, both. He has a big part of my career.
Right on. Right on.
Joe, one thing Malik is referring to in that fight is the ring was actually 15 feet. It was only a 15-foot ring. To put in perspective, it's below regulation size. I mean, it's smaller than any fight should ever be fought in, type thing. And it was 20 centimeters smaller. And it might not sound like a lot to people, but it's a lot. And compared to, let's say, a 24-foot ring, it was a 15-foot ring. And so a guy like Malik's style, he needs the room to do what he needs to do. He's a boxer, counterpuncher. And this other kid, his strength was knockouts. He knocked out 6 of the last guys he fought in the first round. He knocked out 17 of 20 people that he beat, which was everybody he ever fought. Malik was put in a very tough situation, style-wise in every way, and came through it. But it emphasized the point, and again, you mentioned it, Tommy Hearns, and what Malik said, that he had the support. He had a country behind him of a country that's familiar with the industry of boxing, whereas his country is not. But one thing, Malik, that Tommy had that really made him move along is he did have a promoter. Bob Arum was his promoter, and Manuel Stewart was his trainer, manager, but Bob Arum was his promoter. And that's the essential part we're at right now. We need to get a promoter who's willing and motivated, because they own part of the contract, to promote Malik's career. And that's where we're at right now. And the difference, like he said, between Tommy Hearns and Malik, as far as the world knowing him, is awareness. As soon as people get to see Malik, when he gets to fight fights on fair terms, maybe let's say 18, 20-foot ring, with proper preparation, without the promoter working against him, you're going to see a very, very exciting era of boxing in the light heavyweight division.
Right. Reminds me of another guy who had to overcome a lot of odds to win a title, Donny. Who would you like to see Malik fight?
I would like to see him fight pretty much anybody in the top 15. Ideally in their backyard, ideally on a DAZN or highly visual stage, because he's ready now. He's ready for that. He's really ready to fight anybody in the top 15. I would say, I'm saying top 15 because that's the rated fighters. We're not talking about Bivol or Beterbiev yet. I think Malik needs to fight and show everybody and refine his skills to a point where he's ready to beat those guys, and he's going to do that by fighting top 15 guys. And any one of you who are out there, any promoters who listen and hear us, we're ready. Yvonne Michelle, we've got a light heavyweight, just fought another kid that I worked with. Nicholas Elsfett from Sweden, they just fought last week. Yvonne Michelle's guy won, but bring in Malik. Bring in Malik. Let's do it again. We need these top promoters to risk their guys' careers by bringing Malik in to fight him. And why are they going to do that? Only probably because they have to. And that's why it's a hard road for Malik. He has to continually prove himself over and over, which he's done. This isn't his first big fight. He's beat other very credible fighters. Just recently, he beat a Russian who was 23-1. And Malik knocked him out in the 9th round, again in a small ring, again in unfriendly territory. So if you look at his record, you'll see he's got some very real opponents that he is not just struggled with. He's dominated and beat by knockout. Malik is a top-notch fighter, but we need the promoters to either sign him so he's with them or match him against their guys so he can show them why they want him in their roster.
Right. For those of us joining us late, you've seen Donny frozen with the coffee, drinking the coffee, etc. It's he's in the middle of the jungle in Costa Rica, and the internet's not superb there. But we really appreciate you being here and with us, Donny. Malik, what would be your dream fight? Like where would be the who would you like to fight? What would be your dream fight?
I want to fight. I deserve world title. The first thing, I deserve world title. I will fight him world title one day, 100%. But now I want to fight Joshua Buaxi in the UK. I want to go there to fight him. Buaxi, if you know about him, it's top 10. So, and there's many fighters in light heavyweight I want to fight. Bivol, I want to fight him. I want to fight top 1. I deserve world title, and people will know about that. I will say it. I was always saying it in the interviews. I said, if Vito's going to be there, they will see me what I'm going to fight. When I get the chance, when I get the opportunity, everyone will see Malik Zinad is going to fight. Because I really work hard, too much. And I struggle, and I have the hard time, but it doesn't matter. I always keep going. When I get the chance, they will find out what I am going to be.
Well, I love the logo on your shirt, Malik. It's beautiful. That Malik Zinad logo, I love that too. And looking forward to making a short trip to the Bell Center and to watch you fight if Yvonne Michelle should hop on board. And I hope Yvonne listens to this and does something with that. Listen, guys, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us. Donny, this has been great to reconnect. It's been a long time since 1988, November, when I saw you fight there, and then going down to New York to watch you train and everything else. It was a lot of fun. Really love that. And great to reconnect. And Malik, good luck. Go for that world title, and we hope to see you. With a well choreographed championship dance at the when you raise your arms in the air, and Donny's in your corner, and he's lifting you up in the air, and we're looking forward to that moment, man.
Yeah, thank you, John. It's been a pleasure as always. So
yeah, thanks, guys. All right, we got more sports when we come back. Thank you. Joe Tilley here. My wife Penny Claire and I recently took an amazing trip to Egypt and Jordan with Trip Oppo. And here are our top 10 must-dos. Number 4 is touring the magnificent temples of Karnak, which date back over 3,000 years. The intricate hieroglyphs and impressive architecture left us in awe. I would highly recommend that you book your next trip through Trip Oppo. Call them today. Kosa Swiss pick of the week. Last week I took the 8-horse Eden on the Hill in the 9th race in Mohawk at Trot. The Pinball Wizard had the lead heading into the stretch, but Eden on the Hill with Phil Hudon in the buggy flew on by in 155 even. Mark Goddard, the winning trainer for Howard, and Josh Kaufman, the 815 trifecta, paid $111.70. This week, I'm going back to Thursday night's 9th at Mohawk. The Trotters once again. This time I'm taking the Pinball Wizard to take that lead once again and hold it this time. I also like the 345 exacta and trifecta box. Good luck. For all the racing updates, visit Costa TV on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Go to hpibet.com for your wagering options.
Joe Tilley Sports is brought to you by COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com and check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round. Go to hpibet.com for all your wagering options. Become a member today, and your first bet is free. That's hpibet.com. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Guests on Joe Tilley Sports receive a gift certificate from Classica Imports. Top of the line imported men's clothing. Check out the Classica Essential Collection now. Go to shopclassica.com.
We want to thank all the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great people. We highly recommend them all. Thank you for your support of Canadian and local sports. A reminder that the show is available on Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, and Pocket Casts, as well as the Spanglish Network, Zingo TV, Buzz TV Live. Also, check out the show on YouTube. All of our great past shows and clips are on there. Like and subscribe. It's absolutely free. Thanks once again to Donny Lalonde and Malik Zinad for being on the program. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Do you want to buy or sell a home? Could 31 years of real estate experience help you? Why not speak to an amazing team that loves to overpromise and overdeliver? Aldo has a tremendous team of experts on staff. They are committed to making your next real estate transaction smooth and comfortable. Call 416-GET-ALDO or visit getaldo.com. MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business accounting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the need of their clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to do business and personal strategies to help people and organizations to succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, their team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca today to learn more. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. Let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678.